So now that we have webhooks and uploading set up, we probably want to show these videos to the users on the course page. So the thing that we're going to cover in this video is that we're first going to build an API endpoint that basically publicly lists the videos. Well, you need to be logged in, so not completely public, but it has a special thing where it removes the user ID so that users can't see who uploaded this video. And then we're going to look at the layout of the course page by adding like a little sidebar. And in the sidebar, we're going to add the videos, each video having its timestamp and whether it's public or whether it's for paid users only. And then once we click on those videos, it's going to render a little video box in the side or in the main page, and then we'll be able to watch that. So that's the goal for this part of the course, and if you follow along, you should be able to actually watch some of your own videos after this. So currently this is the state of the application. We have our landing page listing all the course outline stuff, and what we're going to work on now is to show the actual video content on this part of the application. So if you remember, we have the admin route, and within admin, that's where we uploaded our videos, and we have some processing and draft ones, so we probably won't be able to see those, so we'd have to make some changes on the database to be able to render them. So we might have to upload a few. I might do that off screen. So let's focus on the watch page, the course page. Back in the course page, we're gonna first, before adding any markup or styling stuff, let me just adjust this code editor a little bit so that get some more screen real estate. I'm gonna go into the server, and in the server, the API, and then videos. So what we want to do is we want to create an endpoint that basically you're able to call with a get request and then get a list of the videos from the database. So we'll call that, we just want to call get to like the base route of APIs, well, /API/videos. And when we do that, we want to basically just say a new file called index.get.ts. So you can see that I've created that there along with our other routes. And in index.get.ts, we basically just do the normal thing where we export default the event handler of Nitro. So we have an event handler that should handle the request coming into /API/videos, but we want to return our videos. So the very first thing we want to do in this case is make sure that we check whether the user exists. We don't want to display videos to the entire public domain. We just want to show it to our logged in users because they deserve that. And the way we do that, if you remember correctly, Nuxt auth utils does come with a require user session, which is basically just a little utility that just checks that the user is, actually, it does actually exist on the session, so that we can be sure that they are there. So now we can actually query our database without any user details because we don't need them. So we don't need to pull out the user. We just need to make sure that they exist. So what I'm going to do is basically use drizzle. You remember this is a little function that we defined where we just hook up the NuxtHub database. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the results. And we can say db.select. Why is my keyboard not working? Actually, we'll use a query for this because we don't need to do any fancy stuff. So we'll do find many, which is basically everything. But what we want to do is we want to exclude some columns. And the way we can do that is just say columns, and then it should autocomplete the user ID. Oh, sorry, we don't want to find users. We want to find videos. That would have been a bit of a doozy. Let's just give everyone all the user details. Okay, so we want to not give them the user details at all. So we're removing the admin user ID from the video details. So they basically never get shipped to the client. And then what we want to do is we just want to check whether the video is published. We don't want to show draft videos, and we don't want to show processing videos. So we can say that we're equal, and if you remember, we exported equal from our utils, so we can just use it without any imports. And we can say tables.videos.status, I believe, and then we want that to be published only. We just want to show published videos. And then to make our lives a bit easier, let's sort them. We can say something like order by, I guess, yeah. And then we need to import this one specifically because we aren't exporting it as a utility. So we can just do that. As we might be using ascending or descending more often, then we could also export that from our utils. But for now, I'll just import this. And then we can just say ascending table videos.created at, which means the oldest video is first and the newest video is last. And then we can just return those results. And to make this a little bit simpler, we can just, well, it doesn't really matter, just return either that entire thing or return the results. So that's it. That's our entire endpoint: checking the user, getting the videos, and sending it to the client. Now, because we're not exporting the video as is from our database, we're removing the user ID. And if we go look at our server in the database schema, if we look at videos, you can see that we use created at and updated at as timestamps. But what we do is we basically give it the mode of timestamp, which causes, or which lets Drizzle convert that timestamp into a JavaScript date. So this is quite important. When Nuxt sends the data back from the server to your client, it needs to serialize that data. So serialization means basically converting it from JavaScript types into JSON that is transferable over the wire. You don't really transfer the entire date object like it is represented in JavaScript. It gets converted to a string, and then what's received on the front end is basically the same thing as new date.to local string or to string or whatever. So it has like a string thing. So that means like when we receive this in our page, it's going to be a bit different than what we expect. So we're going to have to fight types a little bit. And for that reason, I'm quite a proponent of just having like a types.ts file. And in here, this is where I would usually have like share types or modify types that's both on the server and the client. And that really just helps like sort of consolidate what you expect. So on the server side, we already have the video type. So we could say something like import type. And when you do this, it's quite important to use the type keyword. You don't want to import server code into your client. This is why I make it a types.ts file, so that whatever gets exported from here is only types. You don't want to import, let's say, a video schema or a video object or something like that from your server and then expose it to the client, because that could lead to some security issues. So what I'll do is I'll just import the type video from server and then database and then schema. So we do have this video type, and then what we want to do is we want to export a video type that is only used on the client side, and I'm going to call that the client video. So basically client side video, which would be, first we're going to use this omit helper from TypeScript, and omit basically takes the object that you want to work on and then you give it the fields that you want to leave off. So I'm going to give it the video type, so the object type that it receives, and then we want to omit the user ID, create that and update that, and then we want to add back. So now we're creating a not a union, I guess it's a union type, where we add back created at and updated at, but we change its type from a date, which is what Drizzle makes it, into a string, which is, I guess, a little bit tedious, but in this case it kind of works. So we're just going to make these strings, and then our client always has the correct type. So currently it says that it doesn't know what video is. So let's go back to our database schema, and then down here at the bottom, we're going to export type video equals type of videos.info select, and there it gives you the type. So you can see that created at and updated at is dates in this case. And maybe we might want to remove some more things that we don't use, like correlation ID. Oh, we might use that. So for now, user ID is the only thing that we'll remove. So let's go back to our types file. We define down here, and everything looks like it works now. So if we hover over this, you can see we have our client video, which shouldn't include the user ID. Oh, it has the omit on there. So it doesn't give you like the final type, it shows the omit. So you'd always just check for like this part, and then what is it omitting? It's omitting created at user ID. So we can now use that in our course page when we request the videos. So let's go back to app and then pages and then course. And this is an empty page. So we do want to have this middleware defined. And with that middleware, we want to import our video type. So we're going to say import client video. Well, we want to import type only. Client video from the, I guess it's / and then types, something like that. So the double tilde just means that Nux should look in the root of the project and not relative to the app folder. A single tilde would mean app folder, and double tilde is basically the root. And now we have our client video available. So after our middleware has run and we know that the user is actually available, we can basically get all the videos from the API endpoint that we just defined. So we're going to do a const data equals await use async data. And if you don't want to let this page sort of get stuck, you could use lazy async data and add a loader while all the data loads. But in our case, I guess it's fine. We'll give it a key so that Nux sort of reuses the Nux data. So we're going to call it public videos, which should maybe just be like non-premium videos, but I guess public is fine for now. That's the key of the data that we're fetching, and then basically all we're going to do is return the fetch. So we can do return await $fetch, and then we've defined our API videos, and we want to add some options to this. We want to give it the headers, and I'll explain why we give it the headers in a second. And we basically just use the cookie header. So in this case, the reason we add use request headers is because this page can be loaded in two different ways. So the request can come in while you're navigating on the client side. Like if you click on a Nuxt route or a Nuxt link, it will use client side routing, which will be fine. We don't need the headers in that case because the browser will automatically add the cookies. But if we load this page like a full load, we enter the URL into the URL bar, we do a full load. The request is first going to hit the Nux server, then the server would basically render this page and send it back. But by default, the server doesn't add the same headers that were sent initially. So we need to pull the headers out of the initial request to add the cookie so that we don't get like an unauthenticated response from the require user session util. So that's basically it. We do have our videos, and to get started, we might just log out our videos and see if we have anything, which in this case we won't, because if you remember correctly, we don't have any published videos. So let's just log it out and check what it gives us. And we have to remember that this is a data.value, and we're not using client video just yet. We'll use that in a type that we'll define soon. So let's first go to the course page. We're on here. Let's inspect and check out the console. You can see there's an object which has data and it has 0 items. So let me go into the database and then just make some of them published, and then we'll see if we see some videos in the logs. So within the database, I went and checked the videos. You can see that there are 3 videos, and I'm changing the duration in seconds because if you remember, we set the duration in seconds from the webhook, but the webhook wasn't active during this test, but we do have a thumbnail URL and we do have a correlation ID. So we can set up the duration just as like a fake value for now, and then I've set the status to published, and then just for one of them I'm gonna make the visibility I can't remember what the other ones were. Okay, so let's just save these changes for now, and then if we go back to our home page and then open the logs and then go back to the watch course, you can see we get 3 items. So we have all our videos and they're all published, and we do not have any user ID on there, which is exactly what we want, and the dates are strings. So that's perfect. I just want to see what the status was. I think it's either public or premium, but let's just go check in our database schema. Server database schema and then videos, and then the status is published, and then we get public and premium. So I'm gonna set one of these to public as well. If we go back to the DevTools, let's make this one a public video. Save that change, close that down. We get a new object and we have data in there. So this last one should be public, which is great. So now we have a list of the videos and we can actually render them out. The plan is to add a little sidebar over here that has an accordion of each section, and then each section has different videos, and then as we click through them, a little video player would render over here. So the first thing we want to do is basically define a menu list from the data of the videos. So the data of the videos is structured as a continuous array of video objects, and they could have categories. So each category would be, part 1, part 2, part 3, something like that. And then we basically want to transform this array to have an actual category associated with it. So we'll still have an array, but the array would be the first item would be part 1, and then within that we'll have videos. So we can define a type called menu list item, and that type has 3 properties, which would be label, and that's a string. It'll have the data, which would be client video. I guess we could call this videos instead of data because it just makes more sense. Well, let's just keep it as data for now. And then the other thing that we want to add is a optional default open, which is a boolean. This is just going to be used on the Nuxt UI component that we use to render the accordions to at least show something if the page loads. So we'll just make the first one open by default. Later on, you could maybe cache which one the user visited last in the local storage or something, so that they always get back to where they finished off. But for now, we'll just keep it simple. So now we can make a menu list. And the menu list is going to be a computed property. This computed property will reduce the array into another array. So we'll return first we'll check if there are any items, because we can do something like if there's no data.value.length. So basically if this doesn't exist, we can just return that as a menu list item array. Then we know at least we do have videos, and then we can return the data.value.reduce, and we're going to give it the type that we want to reduce it to, which is a menu list item array. And then reduce takes the accumulator, it takes the current, and we also want to use the index. And then within there, we'll just start off with an empty array. So the first thing we want to do is check if there is a group. So the group would be the accumulator, which is the array as we're building it. And we're going to check that if there is already an item that has a label of the current category, we don't need to add it. So we could do something like if group is a thing, we could say that the want to push the new video into that group's data. So we want to push the current item into that group's data. Otherwise, we need to create a new one. So we're going to push the label, which would be the current category, and the data would just be this item because there weren't any items before that. And then default open will make this little check, which checks if this is the first item, then make it open by default, otherwise don't. Oh, right. Okay, so we need to return the accumulator. So that's basically what we were missing, and that fixes it. So now we have a menu list, which is a ref of menu list items. And what we can do to test is just console.log. Whoa. We can just test the console.log menu list.value. We can go back to our app, check the console. So we have an array of 2, and you can see that we have the label part 1, default open is true, and the data is this one video. And then the second item is part 2. It has 2 videos under data, and it is not open by default. So that basically just transforms our data. We need to track if there is a current video open. And the way we do that is basically just create another computed, and this computed's name would be the selected video. And what we'll do in this case is we'll just first check that if there is an ID on the route, so that you can visit the route directly and not have to sort of go through these things manually, then we open that video automatically. If there's no ID, we basically just return the first one. So first we'll need to use the route, and then we're going to try and get the ID from the route. So we can say that const ID equals the route.query.id. So we're going to do it as string or undefined, because this could be multiple items. So we just want to cast it to a string, and we can basically say that if there is an ID, we basically want to return the video that has that ID. But because the query parameter is a string, we need to cast it to a number, and we can just simply do that by adding a plus. This will create a not a number error if the thing is not passable to a number, but that is fine for now. So if we have an ID, we're going to return that video, but if we don't, we just want to return the first video at 0. And then in the worst case scenario, we want to return null, which means our videos were empty. That could lead to some issues, but we'll just expect that we always have at least one video. And then we have a selected video. So now that we have all the data that we need, we can actually define the page. So the page is going to consist of 2 elements, the sidebar and the main video page. The sidebar has a caveat where we'll create a navigation for the desktop view and for the mobile view in different components. But let's start off by just rendering the that as a placeholder, and then we'll create that component. But we also want to render the video section. So basically we're going to create like a main tag, and we're going to give it a min height of the device height. So DVH is almost like the screen height, but on mobile, where the height can change based on whether iOS renders that sort of toolbar or not, it will adjust for that. We want to make it that height, and we want to give it a class of flex, because we're going to have a left side and a right side. For the left side, let's just have like a temporary placeholder. We're going to basically give it some classes. We'll just say that by default, we want this thing to have a width of 150 pixels, and we want to increase that a little bit on when we reach a bigger screen. So these are things that I've hard coded here, so I'm just reading them off of the example that I made. So we also want to give this a min height of DVH, and then hidden by default, but on screens bigger than medium, we want to make it block. So that's just going to be a placeholder for now. It's an empty nav. we should maybe see the sidebar over here, and we do. So now we can continue with adding the section, which would be where the video is. So in that section, we basically want to give it a class of flex1. Just do it like this, which means stretch it out to fill the rest of the space on the right. And then we're going to give it some padding, and then just make it a full width. And we want to make sure that it doesn't get too huge on like TV screens and stuff like that. In case somebody wants to watch your videos on TV, we'll make it 1024 pixels maximum, and then we'll just give it some spacing on the y-axis. So that should basically be the video container. Let's go have a look at this. So now you can see we have our sidebar and we have our video container. For the sake of completeness, we don't want to render this section if there isn't a video. So we can just say only if there is a selected video at this moment in time, because that could be null. So there we have that setting, just to have like some sanity checks. You'll have a blank page. You could have like a VLs and saying, oops, we couldn't find that video or something. But in our case, we'll just not render anything. So in the video section, I'm going to paste some markup and just go through it. Otherwise, I'm maybe going to take too long typing it all out. Basically, we have the video title, and this is a course video player, which we haven't created yet, but we're going to create this component in the next minute or so. And then we have a description, which basically just shows the description. So we'll probably get an error now because it won't be able to find the course player. But so we have the title, the description, which is just a clip. So the video should be rendered in that space. So let's get working on the course video player. So to create the course video player, we'll go to components, and in this session we'll just create the video player, but we probably won't be able to view it because in an upcoming episode we're gonna have to fetch tokens to be able to view this from Bunny, because by default we've secured our videos on Bunny to require a token to view it, and that just allows you to protect your videos from unsolicited viewing. So I'm going to create a new component called course video player. And in this component, we'll import that client video type again from the types file in the root of the project. And then we'll define props. And this props would contain the video. So we'll say that the video is of type client video, and it is required, so we don't have to make that optional. And then basically we need to construct a video URL that Bunny accepts in its player. So we can say something like const video URL is going to be a computed property. And for that we need a couple of things. We need the config, which is the runtime config. And we also need the library ID, which is on the config. So in order to generate the video URL, I'm just going to copy and paste this. So this would be the video URL. I'm going to say return and then paste that in there. So instead of library ID, we can say config.library ID. And this is a little bit long for the rendering, but I'll scroll through this. So it's iframe mediadelivery.net/embed, and then it needs the library ID, which is our main library ID, and then props.video.correlation ID. So we need to make this a variable so that we can access that. So now we have the correlation ID on that, and then delete that. That would be our video URL. So now that we have that, we can actually render an iframe. And this iframe is what Bunny uses to show its player. It has all the controls on it, and it's quite nice. I'm actually going to copy and paste that too, just because it's quite a lot of typing work. The first thing we might want to do is just have like a wrapping div, and then inside this div we just want to make this client only, because iframes are browser things and we don't want to try and server render this. So I'm going to paste that iframe in here, and you'll see that there is a v-else on here. So we need to create a v-if, but I'll show you the steps that we do that. So there's a bunch of attributes that we use. Picture in picture, encrypted media, autoplay off, allow full screen true, show controls, make it a video aspect ratio, remove the border, make it full width and height, and then round it a little bit. So that kind of just helps with the styling. But what we want to do is first check if this video is premium, and if it is premium, does the user have access to premium features? If they do, then we can show it, but if they don't, we need to show them like sort of a link to go subscribe. So we'll create a new div, and then on this we'll create the v-if, and we want to check that if the video.visibility is equal to premium and the user doesn't have, so we need the session.user.value.paid features. So this we don't have yet, so we need to get the user session as well. So below config, I'm going to say const session equals user session. And we could assert up here that if there is no session, throw an error, because this component should only be used in routes that are authenticated. But in this case, we'll just skip that for now. So we're checking that if the video is premium and there's no paid features on the user, we want to add a class to this just to design it a little bit. We're going to say that its width and height is 100%. We're going to have a grid and then place items center to put everything in the center. And then inside this div, we're basically going to create another div that has text center and space y2. And in there, we're going to have a little span. And the span is just going to say you need to be subscribed to view this video. And then below that, we can just add a little line break. And then below that, we have a U button, and that's going to have a add click where we take the user to checkout. We don't have a checkout right now, but we will preemptively add that. And then get started. And then we'll implement this go to checkout function. And we'll remove this for now, and we'll just say alert to do, because that will implement in the Stripe steps. And then we also have to add a to do over here, to do secure video URL. That will be in an upcoming episode. So now we have basically a video and an iframe, and it's probably not going to render just yet. So if we go to our course page, we'll see that we have no render over here. And if we save this and we go back to the pages and then course index, you'll see we have the course video player, and then we have the selected video.id, which should give us a iframe. And there we go. You can see that we get this like bad error response, which is just telling us the validation occurred. The value undefined is not valid. And this is only to do with basically our token being missing. So we won't be able to watch this video just yet, but at least we see the rendering of the container of it. And in an upcoming video, we'll do the security stuff. But to finish off this video, let's just add this little sidebar. To add the sidebar, let's add one data point called show mobile menu, and then let's remove this nav, and then I'm going to replace it with some copied code, which is a component called course navigation that has the same classes that our placeholder had, and we're going to provide it the menu list. And then we're going to have another one which is a U slide over, which basically models the show mobile menu, and we give it a max width of 70 view width, because on a mobile screen the slide over should have a little bit of space on the side where you can click to close it down. And then we have a component called course navigation mobile. So we could have encapsulated all of this in a single component, but I kind of like having it on the course page so that you can see that there are different sidebar menus and it isn't too abstracted away from you. You'll see that the course navigation mobile is hidden on the from medium and up. It is not shown, and on the course navigation it's hidden by default on small screens, and then it's shown from medium and up. So now we just have to create these two components, course navigation and course navigation mobile. Let's go to our app components, and then we'll create a new one called course navigation.view, and we'll create another one called course navigation mobile.view. And they're going to be very similar, but I like separating it out so that I know what is used on mobile and what is used on desktop. So in the course navigation.view component, we are going to import our client video again. And if you remember the type of the menu list, it's got a label and the videos associated with it. And then we're going to abstract away the content of the mobile of the navigation, because it's the same for desktop and for mobile. So we can reuse that inner content, but the container is a little bit different. So we'll keep that in separate files. So back in the mobile one, we can do the same update. So for mobile, there's just a few small tweaks. We still do the same thing where we import the client video type, the same menu list prop, but this one has a close function that gets emitted when the course navigation content emits close. So we'll build this course navigation content and then send out this close sort of event, and then that would be bubbled up into the course page to tell the thing to open and close. So let's create the final one, which would be course navigation content. And this is where the meat and potatoes of the component lives. So this component would take basically the same type of props and also emit the close function for mobile, or the close event, but we want to basically render an accordion and then use our menu list to expand and close down that accordion. So again, for the sake of not letting you watch me type out everything, let's go right to what we've just added. So we're getting this U accordion component from NuxUI. We're passing it the menu list because it accepts a label and then the data, and then we're just setting some styles, which basically just sets like a little bit of a better text, and each item gets a little bit of padding and it has a border at the bottom. And then we use this slot template, which is items. So basically what this does is it gives you this, you're able to sort of modify every item within the accordion. Then we're looping through the video items in each item. So if you remember, an item is a label and data. So within each item, so each accordion, we're looping through each video. We're giving it a key, and then this link points to the video item that we want to watch. So basically what it does, it just redirects to the same page. It goes to the course page with the video ID appended to it, and that tells the course page to look at the route, if you remember, and then open that route. If we click it, we want to close the mobile menu so that it doesn't stay open. And then in this case, we also want to get the user. So we can say const session equals use user session, and we go to the next session. We can see that when the video is premium, we want to check if the user can watch it by seeing if they have paid features enabled. If they do have paid features enabled, then they can watch. They can watch it, but if they don't, we add this closed lock icon. If they can watch it, we add the open lock icon, and then we just display the video title. And then we have this little helper function to get the video duration string. This get video duration helper lives in utils duration.ts, and basically what it does, it just checks the if the duration in seconds actually exists, then we just return unknown. But then we use some math to basically get the hours, the minutes, the seconds, then the string of those, and then just make like a little duration thingy. Probably better to use a library for this or some sort of Intel, the Intel object, but I guess this works for now. We do pad start and pad end as well. You could basically just copy this function as is, or use a library, like I said, to convert seconds into like a viewable timestamp. So if we go back to our components, we have our course navigation content, and we're rendering that in a little span. We're using our custom background, which is like this yellowish color, and we're giving it like a sort of a pole shape, like a little tag shape. And then you can see that in the sidebar now. So now we have port 1, which is an unlocked item, and we have port 2, an unlocked item, and this is a public item, so we don't need to render that icon, which is great. So if we click on this, it should take us to course V10, and the video won't do anything because we have some issues going on with the rendering of our token when we fetch the video from Bunny. Back in our video player component, I noticed we have a little bit of a problem over here. We have to add public to the config because our library ID is on the public object of our config. So we can fix that, and let's just check the logs. And we also need to update this to Bunny library ID because we're still missing the library ID from here. So there you can see, so episode 13 clip loads, and that is actually showing because I think we haven't set up Bunny to secure our video. So it's great, we can actually see our videos being loaded. And we have a little issue with the navigation. So the route is changing, but the video is not updating. So let's fix that. And the reason our video is not showing when we change the route is because we're using route.query.id, but we are using the Nux link with a v query parameter. So if we go to the first one, it'll update. If we go to this one, it'll update the video. And if we go to this one, it'll update the video. So that fixes the watch page. And our description should also be updating, which it does. And that concludes basically the page. So we can also just check the mobile view. So there's no way to view the mobile menu at the moment. So we need something to open up this mobile menu on a mobile. A simple way to do that is just to basically add it to our video thing. So just above the title, we're going to add a little U button that basically shows the course outline. So if we open up this page again, I've lost it. We should see course outline. If we click on that, we get our little navigation. If we click on this side, it should disappear. If we change a video, it should also disappear, and it should go to the new video. So that basically concludes our listing and viewing of videos. So I hope you got something out of that video. Next time we'll look at protecting our videos by setting a setting within Bunny to require the video to be viewed with a token. And in our application, we're going to have to make a request to our API to check that the user actually is allowed to view that video before generating the token. Give the token back, and then we'll update the URL with it a little bit, and then basically watch our videos in secure mode. So I hope the little bit of a change up where I'm not typing everything out in the markup and styling is a good one. If you've watched this and you didn't like that, you can reach out on X. The links are on the ship page where you can find me on X. And I just think it speeds up the recording a little bit, because the markup and styling is all up to you as well. Like, how do you want to style it? And you can always pause the video to check out what we've done and type it out. But I feel like I might be losing a bit of attention if I'm continuously typing and fixing typos and stuff. But let me know. So I'll see you in the next one.